So when do you have work next?
Me, I work, what's today? Tuesday? I work Wednesday like at 2. It really sucks.
Oh,
You
well, we can teach you on Wednesdays.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Hey, I'm Zach.
I'm Conrad.
And I'm Jeremy. And they're going to teach me today how to play
Magic the Gathering.
So Magic the Gathering is a game that's been around for over 23 years, and it has various different kinds of game modes, and like the most commonly played game mode would be Standard, where you play with the most current cards, the newest cards of the year. And in order to play the game, you need a deck. And a deck is a library of spells and creatures that you, the player, the Planeswalker, casts. A deck usually consists of 60 cards minimum, and you can have a maximum of as many cards as you want as long as you can shuffle unassisted. In Draft, you go to a shop, open up booster packs of Magic the Gathering cards, which contain 15 cards, and you make a deck out of those and play. And they generally consist of around 40 cards or so. Now, in the beginning of a game, you will start by shuffling your decks, however which way you want. I prefer to shuffle this way. Just go ahead and lace them right through, and there's multiple ways to shuffle. There's even power shuffling, which is shuffling just on the table in multiple piles, like so. And you do this to vary your draw between spells, land cards, creatures, planeswalkers, just between all of your tools to make sure you have high probability and likeness of getting what you need. Now, after you're done shuffling in a game, in a tournament environment, or generally when you're playing at a shop or with friends, you will go ahead and exchange decks, and you have the option to shuffle your opponent's deck. And this is a trust thing, to show that you trust that their deck is shuffled and not tampered with, and that you trust the cards they're playing with. And when done, you return the deck back to them, and from there, you can determine how to choose who goes first.
There's one way you can check the bottom of your deck if you don't have a dice or a coin or some way to discover. You look at the bottom and you look at the first letter. Mine's N. Yours is?
Well, crap.
He has a Z.
Okay.
And mine would be B. And alphabetically, the person closer to A would go determine whether they would want to be on the draw or the play. And there's multiple different ways to determine how you can choose to go first. If you don't have a coin or you don't prefer that method, you can actually roll a die, and you can decide whether you want to roll for the highest number or the lowest number, and you can determine order that way.
No, we got a tie.
And much like that, when you're playing with just two people, you can flip a coin, somebody can call a side, you can call a side, so on and so forth. There's various ways to determine order. Now when you start, you will draw 7 cards off the top of your deck. And you'll look at your hand. And generally, you want to have a nice mix of what are called land cards, and these are used to pay for things, creatures and spells, and they're permanent and they stay on the battlefield. So you want a nice mix of land and spells. Spells aren't creatures, they're actually things you can use to get the upper hand. You'll notice at the top of the card itself, it'll have, you can go ahead and explain card makeup now.
Oh. Well, as I was showing you, these are lands. These are what's going to be paying for your spells. And then This is a creature, a sorcery, an enchantment. You could see it down here, what type they are. Up here is the name of the card. And right across on the same bar as the name is the cost that it's going to be to cast that card. The rest, for example, would cost 1 swamp to cast this card. Catacomb Sifter will be 1 black, 1 green, which will be 1 swamp and 1 forest, but I don't have a forest, and 1 generic mana, which is any other color or colorless mana to cast that card. Down below, it has their abilities for each of these cards. Abzan Ascendancy, its ability is when Abzan Ascendancy enters the battlefield, I put a 1/1 counter on all the creatures I control. Whenever a non-token creature, this being a token creature, when a non-token creature I control dies, I put a 1/1 white spirit token onto the battlefield with flying. Creatures down at the bottom have these little numbers. The first one is their power, and the second one is their toughness. So the first one is how much damage they're able to deal, and the second one is how much damage they're able to take.
Okay, if you don't like your hand how it goes, you can do something called Mulligan. Now, there's 2 ways. One is unofficial. If both players mulligan, then you both give the cards back in your deck, and you shuffle them, and then you draw 7. The way I'm doing it, because I'm the only one who's mulligan, I shuffle my deck any way I want. Do I have to give it back to somebody so they can cut it?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to give it to Zach.
And after he's done shuffling it, after choosing to mulligan, I'll go ahead and cut his deck one more time.
Now, I will only draw 6 this time instead of 7, like in the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Now, after he draws his 6, he has the option to scry, meaning look at the top card, and if he likes it, he can leave it there, or if he does not, he puts it on the bottom of his library.
But only after he's confirmed that he wants to keep those 6.
Yes. So now that we are starting, since I rolled the highest die, I'll start my turn. And generally, each turn has an order of steps within itself. Your first step, we'll actually get to some of the earlier steps, but how you begin is you have your main phase after you draw your card. When you play in the beginning of the game, you don't draw each turn. At the beginning of each turn, however, after that, you will draw 1 card unless it says otherwise via other cards. So since it's the beginning of my turn, I'm going to go ahead and play a land. And this is a special land. It's actually a tricolored land, meaning I can pick, it enters the battlefield tapped, and I can pick one of those colors to expend it as. So I could tap it for green mana and add green to my pool. And what it means to add mana to your pool is when you spend mana, it goes up into a pool that you can use to cast things, and that drains completely at the end of your turn. In some cases, mana won't leave your pool if you have certain cards that tell you to do so. So this comes into the battlefield tapped, meaning I can't use it, and I can't do anything else for the rest of my turn. So I'll go ahead and pass the turn to my friend here.
Now, that is my turn. Because I'm second, I'm able to draw. Now I'm going to do something similar to him and put a special land. This one's different only by the different colors, but it has the same kind of concept, where I have 3 lands I can choose from, but it comes in tapped.
Same general concept, just different colors.
My turn, so I get to draw. I am too, I'll be playing a special land. This one does enter tapped as well, but this one is one that has different abilities than theirs. This one will tap for either white or black mana, or I can pay the special little one and it becomes a creature.
So now that it cycles back around to my turn, I'm going to explain what happens at the beginning of your turn. What you'll do is you will untap everything on your field, so I'll go ahead and untap my land, and then I will do what is called my Upkeep Step, which is if I have any enchantments that say to do anything, on the beginning of my turn, I would gain a creature, I would go ahead and play that creature onto the battlefield. And after doing that, I'll go ahead and draw. And each turn, you can only draw a maximum of 1 card. So now that it's my main phase. And in your main phase, you can play land, spells, or creatures. I'm going to go ahead and play a special land, Orborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. And this has actually a special subtype. You can go ahead and explain the subtype.
Now, this is a legendary land instead of like a normal land like we've been playing. Now, legendary rule is if anything with the same name enters the battlefield as a legendary, one of your legendaries gets destroyed. This one's ability is each land is a swamp in addition to its other types. So if I was to play this and this, well, that's not a very good example. Let me grab one real quick. Say if I was to have this forest on the battlefield and you play this, this is going to be a forest swamp at the same time. So when I tap it, I can tap this for either swamp or forest mana.
And abilities don't just have to affect you or one single person you're playing with. Generally, when you play Magic the Gathering, it's either 1-on-1 or 2-on-2. But in this case, we're playing a 1v1v1 game. And this card in particular actually will affect everybody else. They will all have their lands a swamp in addition to its other types. So I'm going to go ahead and end my turn because I can't do anything. And the game will generally progress like this, so on and so forth. Pass the turn, he will do his untap, upkeep, then draw, and continue into his first main phase.
I would just put a land down, and I will end my turn.
Alright. Then it goes to my turn.
Mhm.
I get to untap, do my upkeep, and draw.
And so on and so forth. So in this scenario, I'll go ahead and explain, we're going to be talking about the different steps in combat, how the stack with spells works, and how various effects can trigger different things on the battlefield and in the game. So it's my turn right now, and I have 2 Fleece Mane Lions on the battlefield. They're a white-green 3/3 creature with the ability Monstrosity. Now, if I were to pay for its Monstrosity cost, he would gain what is called +1/+1 counter. That's permanently changing him to a 4/4 creature, and we usually use dice to keep track of counters, and we'll go ahead and lay that on top of the card if I were to activate that. And when he becomes monstrous, it says, as long as Fleece Mane Lion is monstrous, it has hexproof and indestructible. Different creatures have different abilities, like hexproof and indestructible. Currently, he doesn't have it, but if he were hexproof, meaning he could not be targeted by spells, and indestructible, meaning if he were to take damage enough to kill him, he would not go to my graveyard. He would not be removed and die. Now, what I want to do is, my opponent over here has 2 creatures on the battlefield, and I want to lean the odds in my favor. So before combat, in my main phase, I'll go ahead and play for 3, Hero's Downfall. It's a spell that says destroy target creature or planeswalker. What
So-
he can do if he has an instant spell, because instants are a type of spell, you can play at any point in the game, during your opponent's turn and during almost any single step. And you can use instants to retaliate.
Because he has a card and he's trying to destroy it, I wish not for that to happen to my card. So I'm going to activate Center Soul. Now, Center Soul lets me choose a color of my choosing to be protected. Right now I'm choosing black. So, because of that, it's not able to be affected by cards that have devotion to black, like this card right here. Now, because I activated an instant, which is something that affects my cards pretty much prowess, which is an effect when a non-creature spell is cast, it gets +1. Because both my creatures have that, I give that to both.
So these are what we call triggers, and they're abilities that activate under certain given circumstances. So the fact that he played a spell and his creatures had prowess, they will temporarily get +1/+1 until end of the turn. Now the way spells would resolve on the stack is, instead of me destroying his creature before he's able to protect it, it's called the stack because the way spells are determined in order is on top to bottom. So his center soul will activate and give his creature protection from black before my black spell destroys it, rendering it useless and going to the graveyard. So after your main phase, you have what is called your combat phase, and I can choose to attack him with my creatures. Now you're not necessarily pitting your creatures against each other. The main point of the game is to reduce your opponent's life total to 0. So right here, I'm using a life counter app on my phone. We both start with the life total of 20 each. And one of the ways to win is to reduce their life total to 0. There are other ways to win, including reducing your opponent's deck size to 0, meaning if they cannot draw or you cannot draw, you in turn can lose the game. So you can also go ahead and keep track of life with what are called spin down life counters. And they're not like regular D20s. They actually start at 20 and spin down. And these come in different kinds of packs containing Magic the Gathering cards, like not boosters, but fat packs. So I'm going to go ahead and attack with my 2 Fleecemane Lions. So I've assigned attackers, and he can choose creatures to block so he doesn't have to take that damage.
Because I do not want to take both the damage, I'm going to block one with each. Now, that would eventually destroy my monsters, and this one will be able to destroy that one. Because like the other hand, Center Soul is an instant, I'm going to use that same kind of concept and use another instant with my mana. Now mana, when it goes through your turn, it only resets when it's in your upkeep. But if it's someone else's turn, you can use that mana you have left for an instant. For example, make a stand, which make my monsters indestructible and +1. Activating their trigger, prowess, giving them an extra damage plus another 1 because of the spell itself.
Well, yeah. So right now his creatures have +2/+2 on top of them and an additional +1/+0. So he is a 5/4 and it triggered his prowess and lifelink ability, and this creature right here is a 4/4. So upon assigning blockers, you can use and play spells. And now that we have blockers and attackers assigned, creatures deal combat damage to each other at the same exact time. So he will hit him for 3, and his Seeker of the Way will hit my Fleecemane Lion for a total of 5, killing my Fleecemane Lion. And his Jeskai Elder will do the same thing. They will deal combat damage to each other at the same time. He will take 3, and his toughness will temporarily be reduced to 1, and my Fleecemane Lion will go to the graveyard. Now, upon the end of my turn, his toughness on his creatures will reset, and the counters will disappear because they're temporary. So now that combat's over, you have what is called your second main, where you can play land that you didn't play already, or any additional spells. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pass my turn because I can't play any more spells, and his counters will fall off, and he will untap and go through the various steps and phases.
And on his upkeep, one of the things I can do, because his turn is even before mine, I can play an instant. So I can tap the 2 costs for this, and ultimate price is Seeker of the Way, killing his Seeker of the Way.
Yep.
But here's where it's fun. Because I had a second one, I can take out his other one.
Yes, and if you have the mana to pay for it, you can keep playing spells and creatures to as long as you want. In this scenario, I'll be explaining what planeswalkers are and how they work and what emblems are. Now, before I get started, you'll notice a lot of players, especially in competitive Magic the Gathering games, have 15 cards set off to the side. This is what is known as your sideboard, and for anything that your deck can't handle, or any of your weak points that you can't handle in your main board, in between games, out of the 3 games you play, you can go ahead and sub out cards in your deck for the 15 to better your odds and even the playing field. Now, I have a Planeswalker on the field called a Johnny Steadfast. And Planeswalkers, you'll see they don't have power or toughness. They have what are called loyalty counters. And loyalty counters are essentially because in and of the lore itself, you are a Planeswalker playing against other Planeswalkers. This is a Planeswalker to come to your aid. Now, you pay for their abilities with their loyalty counters, and their loyalty counters act as if they're their own life total. He has different abilities called that say +1 and -2, and you'll do exactly what they do. If it says -2, you'll drop him down to
2 loyalty counters.
2 loyalty counters, and if I were to +1 him, he would go up 1 loyalty counter, and he can be targeted as if though he were a creature, and when his loyalty counter is reduced to 0, he will go to the graveyard. Now, my Ajani Steadfast has 7 loyalty counters, and he has what's called an ultimate ability. You get an emblem with if a source would deal damage to you or a planeswalker you control, prevent all but 1 damage. And this is what his emblem would look like. Emblems are irrevocable from the battlefield. There is almost no way to destroy them or remove them. They're there until the game ends. Now, I'm going to go ahead and activate his ultimate ability, putting him at 0, and he will go to the graveyard, and I will gain my permanent emblem. If a source would deal damage to me, you or a planeswalker I control, I would prevent all but 1 of that damage. And before going and attacking my opponent here, I'm going to go ahead and tap 4 to play a spell called Utter End. Utter End says exile target non-land permanent. He has a god card that I'm not too fond of that has indestructible, meaning any damage it takes won't be enough to destroy it. But exiling it is removing it from play. Now, his card will go into exile if he does not have a way to counter my spell. And that card is technically removed from the game. You can only interact with cards that are exiled if a card says that you can interact with exiled cards, and exiled cards are temporarily out of the game. They don't have to stay there, but sometimes they can temporarily be there to save them from effects. Now, cards in your graveyard can be pulled up and replayed. Black decks consistently pull things back from the graveyard, reviving them and using them. Like a good example of that is I have a legendary enchantment artifact.
Enchantments are like spells that enter the battlefield and stay on the battlefield, such as Jeskai Ascendancy, my Abzan Ascendancy, his Whip of Erebos, they're all enchantments. His is a legendary enchantment, which means he can only control 1 of the Whip of Erebos.
And it's also an artifact.
It is also an artifact, which is pretty much the same thing. It just has a certain ability. Now, this has the whole text. It says, creatures he controls has lifelink. Lifelink is an ability which whenever a creature does damage, whatever damage that creature does, he's going to gain that much life. Then he has a mana payable ability, which is return target creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains haste, but at the end of his turn, he has to exile it. And so we just ran down pretty much everything that there is except for one thing, comboing. Now, my deck has an infinite combo where I can pretty much kill both, or drain their life, wouldn't actually kill them, in this turn by playing this card. Now, Brood Monitor is the final piece I need for my combo. So what he does is when he enters the battlefield, I'm going to get 3 of these little scions. These get to be sacrificed for 1 mana. So I'm going to play him. I'm going to tap the mana that I need and sacrifice my scion.
Now,
which will
in
give me
response to what he was doing, like we mentioned earlier with instants, I can go ahead and play a spell on his turn. So I'll go ahead and pay 1 life, tap 2, and this is generally what the game will look like when we're actually moving and playing it as a whole. I'm going to go ahead and play Dromoka's Command, and it has 2 abilities I can pick from. I'm going to prevent all damage target, or wait, no. I'm going to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature I control, and while he's, before he finishes doing that, I'm going to make my Siege Rhino fight his Monastery Spear. And fighting is the same thing as combat. They will deal damage equal at the same time.
Now that he's doing that, he's being an ass to me. So I'm going to do this where I put my land, make my creature make a stand, invincible, giving a +1 to my creature, and not destroying mine. So,
And it also causes his prowess to trigger, giving everybody else +1/+1.
plus with the enchantment itself giving me another +1.
Thus saving his creature, rendering my fight useless.
Correct.
And now Conrad
Then
can
it goes
continue.
back to my turn.
Because it was indeed his turn.
So I play Brood Monitor, and because I sacrificed my 1 Scion, Zulaport Cutthroat, whenever a creature I control
Now here's
dies,
another thing. I want to destroy his combo. I'm sorry. I'll give a response afterwards, which could save me, but I'll let him finish his combo.
okay. So whenever a creature I control dies, each opponent, my opponents, are going to lose 1 life, and I'm going to gain 1 life. So with Brood Monitor, I get 3 of my little Scions. I'm going to kill all 3 of my Scions
Sacrifice.
and pay for my Eldrazi Displacer's ability, which causes me to exile 1 of my creatures and bring it back to the battlefield tapped. So I'm going to do that to Brood Monitor. So it leaves the battlefield, enters the battlefield again, allowing me to get the 3 Scions, kill him again to pay for this ability, exiling him, bringing it back, getting
Now
the 3.
explain what the benefit of that would be.
Well, the benefit of that is now every time I kill 1 of my Scions, each of my opponents are going to lose 1 life, and I'm going to gain 1 life. And because it's continually going around over and over and over and over again in a single turn, they can't really do anything about it unless they pretty much have an instant or some sort of spell to say, hey, you can't do that.
This is essentially what we have a good combo and we have a good combo going on between these cards and synergy between the tokens and the spell itself.
Now, the importance of actually having a card itself could cause you to lose the entire combo. For example, his will do a continuous. For me, what I said I could save myself is because I can use Mystic, put these down, and use Jacket Charm, which lets me do 4 damage or target a creature and put it on the top of the owner's deck. Which, of course, I'm going to destroy it, so I can't do that combo again. Which would have saved me.
I can't destroy it.
Oh, okay, then I'll just put it back on the top of the deck. You know, it saves both of us in the long run.
And that's essentially how you play Magic the Gathering.
I'm very disappointed in that.
Cut.
Cut.